behind the cloak. And if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked. So listen up, cause this hair of the dog, what's real, what ain't? Is this the fog or smog? Cause there's a difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy. It is a beautiful morning here in Canada. Thank God for climate change. Just wanted to let everybody know that this is your place for answers. We answer the questions, the good questions, the real questions, like which came first, the chicken or the egg? And of course, the answer is chicken, as described by Chicken Egg Foo Young. We've got a great show for you today, and I can only think of one way to start it and make it better is by introducing my lovely and talented co-host, Miss Kerri Barber. Good morning, Kerri.
Good morning, Mr. Andy. I am so thrilled to be here on this wonderful Friday. I love Friday shows because we get to, we're casual already, but Friday is usually just off the rails, and it's so much fun. So if somebody happens to be browsing on one of our 12 channels and 20 different, so if this is your first time tuning in, first off, shame on you. Where have you been? But anyway, welcome. And we are live and interactive, so anything can possibly happen and sometimes does. But if you want to weigh in with a comment or a question or a critique with everything except my lighting, we've done that. We'll read it here, and we want you to join
on.
it. No, come
hang on a second. Hang on a second.
Okay.
The reason we haven't critiqued your lighting in a long time is because your lighting is much better. Like you look less animated, like a
less
Pokemon
like a vampire.
or something.
Right. Yeah.
No, it is a lot better. It was kind of almost like a goth vampire.
I was just missing sparkles. That was it. Yeah. So
fucking hate sparkles.
Glitter. Yay. So again, if you're just tuning in, you're waking up, thank you for joining us, and please feel free to weigh in. So today I'm not sure how this is going to go. We're either dishing the tea or, we're pushing back.
Or drinking the Kool-Aid.
So this could go either way. So because we are not a corporate-owned media and we go by journalism ethics, there is literally an ethics policy for journalists. Most, they don't read it. We do. So before we get started, I have a few disclosures and things that I want to mention. First, full disclosure, I think it was last year, I don't remember the exact dates, but I was briefly a volunteer for the National Progressive Party. That's N as in Nancy Progressive Party. We stream on their channel right now. So hi to everybody on that one. We were never invited to any other party to stream on their channel, so we'd love to. But that's full disclosure there. And then I was a volunteer briefly for that organization. So I just want to put that out there. I am not now. So that is my little disclaimer. Second is, whenever we bring on guests who have something to say, their experience with an organization, we try to take the ethical stance. And I did reach out to the organizers of Movement for a People's Party. I sent them an email, asked for a formal statement, a rebuttal, something like that. And we did invite them to come on the show and talk. So as of this moment, I have not seen anything from them as a response. I do have some informal comments, not necessarily off the record, but informal comments that I will share during this broadcast, just so that we can provide some balance. But we present all of this to you to make your own decision, right? So as always, I've included links in the chat. Check my work. If you find something that I have missed, let me know. If you find something that maybe I got a little wrong, let me know, because we want to make sure that we are absolutely accurate in everything that we report. So,
right. We always want to take the high road, and especially, as progressives, it's the glass houses thing. If you're going to critique the current political environment and what's happening in the United States currently, you have to show that you're willing to take the high road in every step, right? So we're going to, just for clarification, we want to make sure that we understand that it's not N as in Nancy, it's M as in motherfucker. So continue, Kerri.
Well, there goes our monetization, Andy. Way to go.
It is Friday. It's not payday, but it's Friday.
Yeah, we don't monetize on social media because we don't want to be in the same position as other independent news networks. But on that note, if you like what you see, you like the reporting that we're doing, the investigative stuff that we're doing, the activism, we have a Patreon. So feel free. For a $3 a month membership, you can change the entire landscape in journalism. So if we're not the ones you pick one. And I had this rant on Twitter yesterday, and it was a short rant, but I was like, everybody complains about corporate owned media and the bias, and all of that stuff came out about Brooklyn Dad and blah. I'm like, look, we have the power to change this. And until we recognize it, we're going to keep going through the same things. And I just find it just maddening that we all rush to corporate media and then complain about it and don't trust it. But we don't take time to pick one independent journalist organization and maybe donate $1, $2, $3 a month. If we did that, that public funding of independent journalism, we change the entire landscape. So when you start to, when you question it, look in the mirror first.
Exactly. Because currently right now, because of the environment that we are in, and I'm still waiting for that check from Soros. Haven't seen it yet, but
he's a deadbeat dad.
I know, right? He should not be getting the stimulus check. Anyways,
No.
We don't have our own platform, right? We don't have the means to make our own platform, to have a progressive platform that we know isn't controlled by corporate America, that isn't going to stifle progressive policies or anything like that, right? So that whole thing changes, and I find it a little telling. I saw. I think I saw it yesterday. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but I saw actually the post yesterday that TYT has been able to secure another donation from certain.
Oh, good Lord!
Yes. Somewhere in the neighborhood of about $20 million.
Oh, good for them.
And these are all places that are people or corporations that have a foothold in mainstream media, and it's.
Was this before or after Cenk had to come out with a crying video saying that Jimmy Dore was right? Was that before or after?
I don't know. I'm still saddened by that. Quite honestly, I was hoping for it to rain so I could sit by a window and look out. Right.
So you could get that really dramatic picture.
Yes, with some sad violin music.
That would have been awesome. We're gonna have to do that. That could be our fundraiser, Andy crying. So okay, so enough silliness. Let's get into serious conversation, or at least we'll attempt to. So We are so privileged to welcome two activists today, and we're going to introduce them one at a time because I want to give them a space, a safe space to talk. This is so liberal. So let me just quit fooling around. Kamilah Harris. Kamilah Harris was an organizer and volunteer. She had a little bit of a leadership role within Movement for a Progressive Party, MPP, and she has since left this organization. So Kamilah, welcome to the show this morning, and tell everybody about yourself. And before we get into the details of your experience, just who are you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kamilah Harris, and I'm from Inglewood, California. A lot of people know Inglewood up to no good. I'm actually from the city that has that famous phrase out there. And I'm a working class person. I work in hospitality industry normally. I work out of convention centers and stadiums and arenas, performing arts venues. And I'm like I said, straight up working class. Like I have like multiple jobs. And my industry shut down last year, this time. So we haven't had fans in our buildings, things like that. So that pretty much stopped my jobs. And my roles. So, I'm just like normal person. I live with my mom, help take care of her. I even just lost my stepdad in January to COVID and other pre-existing conditions. So I'm not a brand. I'm not, anybody like with, crazy amounts of money or anything like that. Like I literally am a regular person. And how I got into a movement for a People's Party was finding out about it through Ryan Knight, who a lot of people on the left political spectrum knows, has a podcast called Amped Up, and I knew him via Twitter. We were like Twitter buddies and stuff like that way before he had his platform, and I thought, oh, this is an opportunity for me to get into something, after having been an official online volunteer for Tulsi Gabbard, who ran in the 2020 Democratic Party primaries. And so I was still a Democrat at that time. I'm no longer a Democrat. I re-registered Green, after the November election. But that's, some of my, background as just a regular, person.
Okay, in your work experience, did you ever have like management or team lead or any of that kind of experience? Have you been in that role before?
Yeah, but it's not, the way my jobs are set up, it's kind of like you get on assignment when you get to work. So, like I would work like a basketball game at like the Galen Center at USC. And sometimes I would have like a supervisory role where, I'm the one in charge of scheduling breaks. I'm the person, like once people are in certain sections, I have to monitor them, things like that. But I never had like an official title like assistant manager or supervisory thing, but I've done that type of work.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. So the next guest that I want to bring on to introduce him to everyone here is Stephen. Stephen, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Kerri. I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you, Mr. Stephen. So you're joining us from Pennsylvania. So we've got coast to coast and international today. So thank you. So tell everyone a little bit about your background, who you are, and then how you got started in MPP. And then we'll get right into the deep conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, my name is Steve Coleman. I'm actually a student at Penn State University right now. I work in the medical marijuana industry as well. I work for Terravita Holistic Centers, which is one of the biggest medical marijuana dispensaries in Pennsylvania. So I'm out there, I'm active, and I'm always fighting for these types of causes. My background with politics, though, I started when I was 18 years old. I ran for a Democratic committee person in my town, and I won. So I was involved with the Democrats from an early age. But as I got older and I started becoming more progressive and I wanted to actually run for, things of consequence, the Dems were never really behind me. They always felt I was a little bit too radical. So that's when I kind of found the People's Party this last summer. I guess it was around August, September is when I found the party. And I thought, these might be some people that I want to hang out with and try to get to work for. I'd reached out to the Greens, DSA, all these other groups, and MPP really seemed like, maybe I could run for them. Maybe they're the group to try. Cornel West is involved, Susan Sarandon's involved. All of these people are involved, Ryan Knight. Why not give it a shot? So I watched the People's Convention that they did last summer. I signed up and I became the hub coordinator for the Philadelphia region. They did not have anything set up at the time here, so I took that role upon myself.
Awesome. Okay, so it sounds like most people, both of you had some political understanding, some level of affiliation with your chosen party. In this case, I happen to be Team Blue. And then, like most progressives who come from across the political spectrum, there's kind of this disillusionment with the duopoly. And, I myself I ran as a Democrat, a Bernie Democrat, and, Stephen, same experience where you just kind of, you just don't feel like you're welcome there. And so most of us have similar stories, so that it's only natural that you still want to be engaged, still want to make a difference. So you join the movement for People's Party. And we did see this convention that came out because it was heavily advertised and you had some really big name activists behind this movement. So seems natural. So now let's get into a little bit, but first, wait. I want to do a quick disclosure here. So Movement for a People's Party, and I posted the link here. This has existed since 2017. It's not a brand new organization. And I remember speaking to Nick Brania way back in 2017-18 timeframe when he was just getting this started. So you can go out on Open Secrets and you can see their fundraising and their expenditures and sort of things like that. So what I did notice is from 2017 to 19, they had reporting and then it kind of stopped. So we'll get into a little bit of their financial structure, their corporate structure later, but I just want to explain some of those links that I put out there because as a progressive organization, the hope, and they say it on their page, that there will be 100% transparency. So this is why I included some of those links. If you want to go through that on our page there, that's what those are for. So, all right, Kamilah, Stephen, you have both now left the organization. As I understand it, you've left with a number of other folks as organizers. So let's go through that. Whoever wants to start first, go for it. But take us through why maybe you decided to leave.
In my case, it wasn't even like a decision like to leave. I did have in my mind of a like deadline to leave, which was like February 1st. But what happened was, and to several of us, we actually got purged from the organization.
Purged as in like terminated,
terminated, removed.
Okay.
Yeah, just kicked out. To even put it more bluntly, like we were just kicked out. And the reason behind it was because we were, among those who were outspoken about the systemic issues of Movement for a People's Party, which we also call MPP. Mm-hmm. They, felt personal when it came to us raising our voices about, what was going on systemically within the organization. The environment that we were in, since was, of course, COVID was a thing, so it wasn't like the organization was doing things like outside per se, in our different states and everything. But we were virtual all the time. So we would do Zooms for meetings. We would do, I would say, be on this workspace called Slack. I don't know if, much of your audience knows about Slack, but, those who are kind of in the professional arenas or whatever industries, they may know about Slack because it's like a workspace that professionals use, to stay in touch, to still do their work while, not being able to physically be in an office. Well, that's where, MPP was basically headquartered. It was on this Slack workspace. And so for us, we were doing all of our engagements, all of our, what work we were able to do via that, workspace. And it wasn't exactly a happy environment all of the time. A lot of times it was kind of toxic, to say the least. Different individuals were, hostile toward other individuals, as far as organizers and volunteers.
Kamilah,
yeah.
I want to clarify this because, okay, toxic. When we say toxic, like I have seen, all right, we've had discussions on this channel about social stack, and I have seen, and my dogs are going to start barking. So, we have seen where
clearly they're upset.
Yeah, well, toxic. Yeah, nobody likes toxic. So, dang it.
Okay, mute yourself, Kerri, and yell at your dog.
They don't care. So I want to go through toxic. Let's define this because I have seen other people use the term toxic to shut down a valid conversation. So what do you mean toxic, right? In fact, Stephen, you sent me some documentation and I saw that happen in this chat. So, when we describe something as I don't like it, it makes me uncomfortable. That's not necessarily toxic.
No.
So tell me what you mean. Let's go into a little bit of detail. Dish the tea, girl. Let's
Okay, no problem. Okay, so what I mean by toxic is that like I said, there was a lot of infighting inside of, Movement for a People's Party. There was a lot of I would say clout chasing, or those kind of like things. There was a lot of I would say like narcissist type of behaviors on the Slack, even to the point of discriminatory, like racist things were allowed on Slack. Homophobic at one point type stuff was on Slack. And this was actually allowed. Like there was like no moderation on Slack of this stuff. And the excuse we always got is, well, we don't have enough people to moderate this platform. So when I described toxic, it was kind of like a nasty environment to work on and to try to, do the actual work of, organizing and trying to build a political party. Yeah. So that's what I mean by toxic. Like it was just very, very hard with, people inside there, like lots of fighting, lots of, hostility, lots of aggression, people trying to, build their image and be selfish about things, like they weren't about the issues on the left or anything. It was just
let me ask you a question. I'm going to get right to it. Kamilah, you appear Black. Is this?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's a reasonable. I would expect that a progressive organization has a diverse organizing body. Would you say that you felt like you were amongst a group of diverse persons?
I would say that I was a minority in the actual membership population of MPP. Like we actually had like a circle that was the Black voter circle, and the last time I was in it, it was about 30 people in there. So
30
comparison to this so-called the number that they have out there of quote 100,000 people, which technically that's not the correct number. It's really like on Slack there was like maybe 2,500.
Okay.
So we was a small
30,
group.
30, just this
We
little.
were small. Yeah, very, very small.
Okay. All right, Stephen, is Kamilah exaggerating here? What's going on?
No, she's not. She's not exaggerating. Like, It was absolutely toxic. That's the best way to describe it, because it's toxic because it's going to kill the movement. That's why it's toxic, because the things that are being said and the things that are being done are going to cause great harm to the party or movement for a party. Like, for example, with the transphobia, there would be a very transphobic meme that would get posted, and you would have people who would say, like, this makes me uncomfortable, this isn't okay. And you have people like Nick Brana's father, who is the finance person for MPP, coming into the Slack space and telling people to suck it up. And it's obviously just a joke. If you can't even take this, how are you going to take criticism from the Republicans or the Democrats? Like, just kind of whitewashing away every little thing, with things like Kamilah said, with like, we don't have enough people to fight this right now. We don't have enough people to moderate this right now. There are other things that are more important to focus on than this in this space. Like, those were the types of things that were happening every single day.
That's stunning and appalling.
And especially for a group that proclaims to be progressive, right? Like, if you're talking about, what I was talking about just a few moments ago about taking the high road, right? You shouldn't need to have moderation in a group of people running a progressive organization like MPP. The people should know better.
They should. And they even had at one point, a regenerative culture group. This was one of the big asks in our petition that we're going to get to. There was a regenerative culture group that was basically like the HR of MPP that you could go to when there was problems in the space. And they demoted the circle. They got rid of their own HR department. And we said in our petition,
what was the reason for that? Did they give you a reason, or it just happened?
It was just said by Nick that it was voted on among the members of the coordinator circle, and that this was the decision that was made. So one of our asks was for the regenerative circle, group to be bumped back up to a full voting member, so that regenerative culture could be a member of the coordinator circle. The coordinator circle is made up of, the head person from each of these circles that make up MPP. So you have like your political outreach circle, your media messaging circle, your regenerative culture circle. So they got rid of Regen, so it wasn't a voting member anymore. We had said, hey, could you maybe reinstate this and make this a thing, because we think it's really needed right now.
Okay, so let's step back a little bit, and I'm just I'm coming at it from my perspective, having managed my own businesses, been part of executive circles in major corporations, right? You have to have a little bit of hierarchy, and then HR exists as a CYA function, right? We don't want anybody complaining or filing a lawsuit. That's really what it's for. So in an organization like this, like I went out and looked at their status 527, you still have to have some of that corporate dynamic. And I'm just a little surprised, right? Like when you have an opening, like a job fair, in this case, organizing for this movement, generally you have somebody vetting the people who are coming in, and then if there's a problem, they get counsel, and everybody has this expectation of, well, if I do X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to be in some sort of trouble or reprimanded, whatever. Was any of that going on?
Not really. I mean, there were random occurrences where, some people may have been pulled aside and said, like, hey, this is problematic how you're acting. But more often than not, it was people would just get disappeared. Like, if there was a problem that the community saw with you, as far as Nick and those people, they would just remove your account and deactivate you, so you never even got the chance for that.
Yeah, there was a lot of censorship on the Slack, and you talk about journalism with Assange and different things that are going on. I was in the media and messaging working group, And we were basically the ones who dealt with like, traditional press and social media and things like that. And my leader, she ran our group kind of tyrannically. So we were behind like any given NDA agreements, like non-disclosure agreements and stuff. But the one that I was behind was making sure that we don't leak anything before the public gets it, or any like sensitive information, personal type information. So the what she would do is basically she would be like in control of all of the content. We were not allowed to like contribute to anything. I mean, there were meetings where I would be surprised. I was surprised that we never talked about like something like Assange. For a progressive organization, you would think we would talk about journalistic issues and stuff like that inside our media messaging working group. Well, we never did, because that wasn't the priority. The priority was to get eyeballs on MPP and then help them get follows and subscriptions and likes and things like that. That was their priority, was about the optics. It wasn't about like the substance.
Gotcha. Okay. So it was more of a marketing effort. So Kamilah, I do want to share this because I did reach out to several different folks to kind of get that objective feedback. And one of the comments was about you specifically. So I if you don't mind, I want to read it. And this person is off the record, so I'm not going to share their name. But I want to read it and give you an opportunity to respond, if you don't mind. Okay.
No problem.
So this is the comment, and I'm quoting. They describe you as a volunteer, and this person says, I feel bad, but I think there may be something wrong with her, some kind of personality disorder. She was really abrasive and confrontational in Slack, openly insulted people regularly, singled some people out. She was a group that wasn't in MPP very long before they started complaining, less than a year. And then this person said there was an attempt to try horizontal org structure for about that same length of time. And leadership then knew that they had problems with communication, but the style of leadership, I'm assuming they mean the flat hierarchy, made things worse. So leadership admitted that there were problems and offered some solutions in a new structure, meaning the hierarchy structure, but that was just never accepted. So,
wow. Yeah. They're known for scripts. Okay, like they fabricate narratives like all of the time. And this person, I actually have a feeling I know exactly who you're talking about without exactly outing them. But this person was always around Slack, like clout chasing themselves as a quote unquote founding member of MPP. And people would get like insulted by her specifically because she felt like she was like somebody in leadership when she technically wasn't in leadership. In fact, this person got kicked out of her state hub to be like, and there is documentation and everything surrounding that, and her behavior with her own state hub. And hubs are basically, for those, because that's a vernacular within MPP. When it comes to like the regional levels and the state levels and the local levels, they're all considered hubs. So all the groups would be, organized that way for the organizing side of things, to like go out into our communities and literally build teams and things like that. We did what our teams would be called would be hubs. And so this person got kicked out of her state group, her state hub. And so I find it ironic how she comes up with these accusations and things like that when she was part of the reason why our Slack space was toxic. I mean, there are other people who got plenty of stories with this person. In fact, this person even has said at one time on our Slack that we should not be questioning authority and leadership in MPP. And that caused a lot of, chaos and
Especially
things like that.
amongst people on the leftist side, that's never going to fly, right?
Right, like
In a conservative group, maybe, but I've still got to demonstrate the value and the reason for it. So, Stephen, I have one for you as well, sir.
Yeah.
All right. So, again, I'm not naming names, and you're free to make assumptions about who this person may be. I am not going to share that, but so in this particular comment, you and this group of newly released members never stop their assault, which is an interesting word. Never stop their assault, which really begs the question: were they trying to work with us? They spread misinformation, ganged up on new volunteers to get them to sign their petition. And then this person has offered screenshots of how you guys interacted. So let me pose this question, Stephen.
Yeah.
Why were you there? What were you there with the integrity of organizing? Because we have seen, particularly DNC psyops, and as we mentioned, the paid agitators and people who are there primarily to take over a group, a news organization, whatever it is in the progressive space, and dismantle it completely. Was that your goal?
No, that was not my goal. My goal was to build a sustainable new third party. And for people who say that I was assaulting or that, I never had good intentions or anything like that, if I didn't have good intentions, I wouldn't have been communicating up until January 29th with members of the CC about trying to get negotiations back on track. I was booted from Slack January 13th. The day that I was booted, when everybody else was booted as well, the majority of people who were kicked out said they wanted nothing to do with MPP going forward. I, on the other hand, reached out and tried to clear the air because I still wanted to save this thing. As far as approaching new members and the stuff in Slack, that's just not true. The only people that I ever reached out to myself were, let me see, 3 people, and they were all from the Pennsylvania hub, and it was all months after this had began. I never approached anybody to try to get them to get into this thing. And another thing that I want to point out too, going back to what they said about Kamilah, would be as far as the horizontal structure thing, they had that they were going to be in a horizontal structure like the Sunrise Movement up until weeks after the petition had gone on. The only reason that they ever took that down was because it was one of our asks in the petition. We had said to them, you guys are fronting that you're a horizontal structure. This is not horizontal. Why are you bringing in people under the promise of a horizontal structure if it isn't one? And that's when Nick said to us, everything can't be as democratic as we hope it can be one day in the future. And that, no, we are not a horizontal structure. Nick's dad said if we want a horizontal structure to go look elsewhere. The founding member that Kamilah was talking about said the same thing. Another one of Nick's co-people said the same thing. Like, it was a big deal that it was getting pushed so hard that they were horizontal. And then we said, no, you're not. And now they're trying to come back and say, oh, yeah, no. We always said that we weren't horizontal. No, that's not true.
Okay. All right. So let's get to this petition. Because I think for me, looking at this, trying to be objective with a critical eye, this is the thing that I focus on. So you describe it as a petition. It looked to me, and we'll post this. I didn't have a way to post it this morning because it's in a PDF. It looked to me like it was a grievance list like you would see from a union. So you outlined, hey, this is a problem, and this is offered some solutions, some did not. So would it be accurate, and I'm going to pose this to both of you, would it be accurate to say that this petition was like a grievance document where you were outlining specific things and offering solutions, or just providing this to the leadership team saying, hey, these things could be done better?
Yeah, we were offering solutions.
Yeah,
I would
okay.
definitely say that it was a grievance list.
Okay.
Yeah, it was drafted because organizers and volunteers and like different like function role people inside MPP all experienced the same kind of problems and noticed the same kind of systemic issues. And so the original petition came out because everybody was having similarities in the issues and the challenges of their work. And so they decided to just craft this thing and, present it to leadership as a means to have them fix these issues and to, support them in their work.
Okay, so once you presented it, what was your reaction? Was there dialogue? Did they seem sincere in trying to address this? What happened?
All right. So the first meeting that we had with them was November 10th was the first meeting. This meeting, they came in, we presented the petition to them. They let us sit there and read the entire thing to them. And then they told us that they were kind of shocked and felt like we had blindsided them and that it wasn't fair for us to be asking for a response to these types of things right away. And then an hour later, after that statement, another member of the CC said that they had received the petition the night before and had spent 3 to 5 hours going over it and preparing a response. So that was right out the gate. There was some mistrust brewing there, just because they lied about even having a copy of the petition. We have that on video as well.
Where did they get a copy from?
They wouldn't tell us.
Okay, so it's reasonable that somebody in your organizing group
Sent it to them.
And it's fine if they want to take some time, whatever. But yeah, I can see where there's a little bit of a disconnect there between the leadership team. So
exactly.
So then that's the initial out the gate, maybe not the best start, but did they actually start to address some of these things?
See, they didn't right away. That was the problem. The response was
define right away.
Right away was we had agreed that we would get back together in a week and we would address these things.
Okay.
Yeah, so and it was also requested by the group to receive a written response, and we did not technically get a written response until a month later.
Okay.
So we had agreed to meet back the next week. And after a couple of days, Nick Bronner reached out and said, hey, I want to meet with you guys individually. Before we do a whole nother meeting with the whole petitioners group and the whole CC, let's just do me and the petitioners, and we can kind of clear the air about what went down.
So how many petitioners were there?
At this time, there was a little bit under 200. There was probably 60 to 70 on the calls.
Okay, so Nick is now pledging to meet with 200 people individually to get their individual assessment. Okay, all right.
Right. So he meets with us. I guess it was probably like an hour and a half meeting. And, we felt pretty good after it. Like, we thought that everything seemed like he was genuine and that we were going to go into this next meeting in a couple of days and everything would be good. And then they sent us a message saying that they wanted to change the meeting because they wanted to get a professional moderator involved.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
Exactly. So far, everything is like, okay, but you have to remember, this is another, okay, we're going to let you do this. We're going to let you do this. So we set a time for the next week. Everything's good. We send out our emails with the Zoom link. Everything seems fine. And then about 2 hours, an hour and a half before the meeting, Nick called and said, we don't want to do this in the Zoom meeting that we agreed upon. We don't want you to control the recording. We want to go to a Zoom room that MPP has control of.
Did he clarify as to why? Just because he didn't want to record it?
That was the reason. He didn't want us to have a copy of the recording because he didn't know what we would do with it. They said if we wanted to view the recording, we could have agreed upon days and times that they would allow us to watch it. So we said no.
That seems funny to me because I can pirate a movie
Mhm.
Okay, but anyway, go ahead. Neither here nor there.
Yeah, but well, we said no either way, and we said, this is a ridiculous ask right now. We have 200 people who depend on email communication. You're an hour and a half out for the meeting. You want us to try to change this whole thing? No, that's not going to happen. So we went to the agreed upon time, the agreed upon place, and Nick had us wind up waiting for 2 hours, while he was in one Zoom room and we were in the other Zoom room. And he would send little representatives back and forth who would come in and curse us out and say that we were blowing this whole thing, and that if we wanted to actually
What do you mean
make
by
changes,
curse you out? Like just a basic admonishment, or are we talking about
like F-bombs, all that shit. Like,
wow.
you guys are fucking this up. If you actually want this to,
Okay.
make any types of changes, you would come over to the Zoom room that we're in, those types of things.
Kamilah, is this how you remember it too?
Yes. I wasn't in the petitioners group at that point,
Okay.
but I did watch the recordings, and yes, it was like, for me, I was watching to see how the leadership would respond to the petition. Like, I'm
Okay.
real big on, because I've also had a background being on executive boards and stuff like that, dating back to high school for like nonprofits. And so I've been in that position where I've been the one that they've had to come, that they come criticizing and having, grievances and things like that. And I had to process those things. And what shocked me the most was that the way the leadership was acting was just very suspicious. It was also them taking a lot of things personally, as opposed to, looking at the substance of the petition, because, if you're doing a bad job as a leader, you would think in a constructive mindset that you would actually assess yourself and say, well, maybe I'm not doing as good of a job as I think I am. I need to listen to the volunteers and organizers who this organization is supposed to be centered around. But that's not how they acted. It was like an attack on them and their work. That's what they felt like.
So you weren't initially part of this petitioners group. What changed your mind, and when about did that change?
For me, it was when I came back, because I had took a hiatus from MPP because of my stepdad at the time. He had a COPD and other pre-existing conditions, and they were causing him to go in and out of the hospital throughout the month of October. Well, that's where all of this stuff was happening. Where a petition was drafted, and it was being basically prepared to be given to the leadership. And when I came back in early November, I hadn't known about the negotiations and stuff. So Steve was there before I was. And by the time that I got in there, I actually saw some of these recordings, I really was surprised, like the way the leadership handled this in the beginning.
Okay, so we're getting short on time here, and I do want to close kind of on a high note, but so we have this petition process, the back and forth. They were going to bring in a mediator, and then this final meeting with Nick did not go off as planned. So how do we get then to these petitioners being removed from the organization?
So from there was a few more meetings that had happened. Basically, it got to the point where, they finally responded. They had done a few of the things that we had asked, such as changing on the website that they weren't horizontal. They had made bio pages for everybody in the organization, things like that. But the one thing that they hadn't done yet that they had promised was to give us a copy of their bylaws. They had said that they were going to be working on bylaws, and we wanted to be involved in the process.
So this is 2020, right?
Yes, this is 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm confused because this organization has existed in a legal format since 2017.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So we said that, you guys want to be running for president in a few years. You want to run people for Congress in 2 years. We need bylaws. We need them now. We need to know what's going on.
Well, Andy, you would know this.
You need bylaws and a constitution and a code of conduct and a
just to create a 527.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So we asked for that, and they said to us, okay, you're going to be a part of it. You guys can help us. And then the next meeting it was, oh, we already have them written. December 15th, you're going to get a copy of them. It is now March 12th, and I'm still waiting for a copy of those bylaws, by the way. But that's neither here nor there. But like, those were the
No,
types of
wait. That's an important point. That's not neither here nor there, because I'm actually looking at their transparency page where they discuss when they transferred from a corporation to a 527 and the date of that. So the original filing that they have on their page is 2/7/2017, which I can verify and all of that. And then they talk about filing for 527. It is a requirement of the IRS that you have, Andy, you just said it, that you have a charter, you have bylaws, something of that, an organizational structure. You've got to name your officers. All of that is a legal filing requirement at the time of filing. So to me, that's a critical component of this entire piece. These documents had to have existed for years prior to 2020 when this all was going down.
Yeah, and they never disclosed it to any of the volunteers or organizers or function managers within MPP. So whatever they filed, with the state where they filed or whatever,
Mhm.
those documents were never disclosed. So a lot of us were under the impression that they don't have bylaws, that they don't have a constitution, that they don't have these things. And then apparently, as you said, legally they had to submit that stuff, but they never revealed if they had actual bylaws, to us so that we can actually abide by them.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's try to bring this up on a positive.
So from there, basically, after that, it was pretty much like a stall happened. After the whole bylaws thing, we hadn't heard anything. They were saying, oh, after Christmas, we'll get back together. After the New Year, we'll get back together. We had one more meeting, and then all of a sudden, this default person shows up. So default shows up. They go into the Slack, and in the Slack, they make this post talking about the petition. Now, you have to understand, up until this point, nobody had made the petition public. One of the asks of the coordinator circle was that we not talk about it in Slack and we not make a big deal publicly because they didn't want it to look bad.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Andy, this is the second graphic, not the long one, but the short one with this default person. And I just want to highlight this as an example of some of the exchanges. And Steve, you provided me with this screenshot. So I don't know who default is, didn't know how to reach out and get the okay. So far as I know, they're still anonymous, but I just want to put this up there so that people can see kind of an example of the exchange, keeping in mind that this is provided by Stephen and it's a small portion of the exchange. So, okay, I'm sorry, please continue.
Yeah, so default showed up and made this whole post, which was completely going against the integrity of the agreement that we had with the CC. We weren't going to talk about it. And all of a sudden, here's this person making a post, and the CC's not removing it. They're leaving it for the world to see. And I was like, okay, well, if that's what we're doing, if this is where we're at, then we have some questions. Since nobody's talking to us anymore, if we're talking publicly about it, here are the questions that I have. And I believe that's that other screenshot that you have.
Okay, yeah, and we're not going to have time to go through all of that, but I will post it on the replay and we'll post it on our website so people can take a look at it. I did redact one of the names, a whole name, because we don't want to dox anybody. Okay, so here we are. We have this good intention. We have this group with great promise. Now, people get involved, and wherever there are people, there are going to be conflicts. So you guys are now out, but yet we still have this problem as progressives that people in Congress aren't listening. We are not being properly represented. Where do we go from here? It feels like this is constantly happening to progressive organizations, either from a political, journalism, whatever. we're constantly under assault, either from without or sometimes within. So where do you guys go from here?
Personally, I would advise people, like, if you're getting into any of these organizations popping up on the left, because there are several. People are like, well, we need to do something. So there's individuals who are basically saying, well, if there's nothing out there that fits what needs to happen, then we need to make something. Well, if you come across any of these organizations, I would definitely advise, the public to really do your homework. Find out where that organization stands, especially in its leadership. And also the legal side as well. Like, do they have constitution and bylaws? How are they filed with the government? Are those things disclosed to the volunteers and the organizers that are in the organization? Because these are people who are, like, quote unquote, the labor of the entity. Like, we were the labor of MPP. And we see a lot of dialogue on the left about the Amazon workers and things like that. And how they should be supported and things like that. We should be supported too. Like, we were the people in the People's Party.
Okay, so there's 2 points I want to bring up to kind of join on what you said. Number one is we can look at what happened in Nevada over the last 2 weeks. Nevada, this is the Harry Reid Democratic Party. They had a complete and utter sweep of all of their leadership is now progressive. All of the neo-libs, the neocons, whatever you want to call them, third way, they are gone. And now Nevada is completely controlled top to bottom by progressives because, as you said, they have bylaws and they have voting. The second point that I want to bring up is there's a union for campaign workers. Was there any talk about maybe organizing a collective bargaining unit in MPP?
Not
Nothing
that
that
I'm
I know
aware.
of, yeah.
Yeah, not that we're aware. Because a lot of us were new, so we didn't know that well, I would say a lot of us wouldn't know about a union for, like, campaign work or to build a political party, type of work. We were all, like, new, so.
Okay, reasonable. So, Kamilah, that's good advice. Stephen, what have you got for people who might be a little bit jaded at this point?
Focus local. Focus on the things that you can make a difference with. I think that that's one of the big problems that we have, is that we put so much faith into these electoral politics and into these politicians and into these group leaders. And at the end of the day, if MPP did work, Nick Brana wasn't going to be the one who came in and fixed my community. That would be me. And that's the same thing no matter who you want to get involved with. So if you're feeling jaded and you're feeling like, the left's just going to always eat itself and we're never going to be able to make any progress, don't feel that way. Just go out and do it yourself. It doesn't have to be a part of any organization. You are the one who can make the difference.
Good advice. And Andy, I can't help but think of, over the last 2 weeks, that's kind of been the running theme in all of these stories. I mean, it's super sexy to look at Congress and I'm going to run for Congress and do all this sort of thing, not realizing that your local school board, your local county board, your state representative, like here in my state, they're just, they reaffirmed a woman's right to choose. They're working on a fight for 15. All of these things that aren't getting done in Congress are getting done in the State House here. So, Andy, what are your thoughts? You're always a bastion of wisdom.
Well, see, my reaction to the stories we've just heard about what's happening there is, and you hear this a lot, that you watch people's actions, not listen to their words, right? And so there are generally two reactions to situations like both of our guests have described. And that is, for an example, when Bernie Sanders was accused of not having enough women in his his hierarchy of his presidential campaign, what did Bernie do? Bernie went on the record of saying that I apologize, what's happened. I realize there's an issue. We will do better. And then have a solution for that problem, right? The other way to deal with those types of issues is to deny, cover it up, and do damage control, right? And it sounds to me like what we've heard here, what we've been described to us is the latter, obviously, right? And I don't, I'll admit that I don't know a lot about MPP. It's basically just from a layman's standpoint of just observations. I've never been involved with it. But it leaves me with the impression that MPP is more, say, ceremonial in nature, as opposed to, rolling up your sleeves and doing the 98.7% of the work that actually gets an established party in a position where they can do what they want to do, as opposed to the let's have a convention, right? And so I think that's very telling. That's just the way I observe it. I'm not saying that that's true or untrue, right? But we know that this is what needs to be done. We have on the left, and this has been the case for as long as anyone can remember that identifies as a progressive, and even more so since Bernie dropped out of the second presidential race, is that there is a serious lack of a leadership on the side of progressives. And I know that a lot of the reason for that, of course, is because of the need to raise funds, and the ones that would allow that to happen don't necessarily hold the views of progressives, that the same views that we hold. But I think a lot of that problem as well is that we get people that are pseudo leaders that talk a good game, that come in, but they're not necessarily the people that are going to take a third party per se over the finish line. And that's something that eventually we're going to have to figure out how to do it, or we're just spinning our wheels, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the frustration. So thank you for that summary, Andy. You're everybody's dad. Thank you.
No, knock it off.
So that's it for our show today. And I definitely want to thank our guests for joining and sharing their experience and their story, because it's important as a big progressive family that we really got to work through these things. Regardless of whether you're taking on politics or you're organizing around a particular issue, we keep seeing these patterns over and over again. We've really got to figure it out and do it quickly, because we're literally running out of time. But thank you so much for joining us, Kamilah. And where did he go? I can't even see him on the screen. I'm like totally blind. So Stephen, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that we will see good things from you in the future organizing. And then Stephen, you're running for office, right, at some point.
Yeah.
So, perfect. So thank you so much for joining us. For everyone who tuned in this morning, or whether you're watching this on demand, thank you. Independent journalism really needs your support, and we've been doing great things here, and we totally support the rest of our counterparts all across the media network. Independent journalists really need your support right now. So really consider that. And then join us back here on Monday morning. Have no idea what we're talking about, but
yes, join us on Monday, bright and grumpy.
That's typically how a Monday goes, but we do have some good guests lined up for next week and the week after. You've been working really hard on getting that together. If you have a show topic, or you have an issue that you want us to explore, do a deep dive on, send us a message. Let us know. We're more than happy to dig into it for you. So really appreciate that. And that's all I got. Andy, what do you have?
I've just got one quick message. we need to remember that Saturday night, 2 a.m., it's time to move your clock forward an hour and fuck up your sleeping. Everybody, have a great weekend. Take care.
We bout that, ayy. We in the zone. We out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog. We keep it in